Sometimes I think I'm delusional, and then quite often, surprisingly, it pays off, which only fuels the delusion even more. I am, of course, referring to my ambitious behavior of emailing one of my favorite authors, Mr. TJ Klune himself, and asking him to share what most writers consider to be a deeply personal and secretive process. And to my surprise but immense pleasure, he answered all of the questions that I had, and then some. And I will be sharing those answers with you today. Hi, good morning. If you don't know who TJ Klune is, he is the author of a great many works, such as The House in the Cerulean Sea and In the Lives of Puppets, of which I devoured in a few days, sometimes hours. And today I'm going to be emulating Klune's writing routine, as well as sharing some of the answers to my questions. If you don't know me, which is more likely, hi, I'm Caitlin. I am a writer documenting my entire process to becoming a published author, and I am currently working on draft 2 of my very first novel ever. If you like Renegade Nell or My Lady Jane, you might like my novel Sir Callan Gray's Final Lament. It's a soft fantasy that follows a disgraced medieval knight and a time-traveling journalist as she tries to uncover the truth behind his exiling. Now, I'm sure this is not the first video that you've seen with the same exact premise where an author tuber tries writing like so-and-so for the day, and it probably won't be the last. And if you're anything like me, you probably love watching these videos because they're really insightful for both old writers and new writers. I'm making a chai. Look how delicious that looks. But that is why I wanted to try my hand at it as well. So I started to think about authors that I really admired, and I started thinking about what a day in their life might look like and if it differed from mine significantly, and I was kind of shocked at what I learned, and this is only one author. Ooh, I should get a close-up of that. Okay, so the plan for today is to follow Klune's schedule as close as possible, and throughout the day I will be reflecting not only on how I'm feeling about the progress that I'm making in draft 2, but also sprinkling in some of the things that Klune said and kind of how I feel about them as a new author. Okay, here is the basic schedule. Klune says he typically writes from 8 in the morning to around noon. Some days he goes longer, some days are shorter. Now, I will be taking a detour around 11 p.m. to go to the library. I'll be going with my roommate to sort of switch up the ambiance. Now, I do anticipate continuing to ride the productivity wave and keep writing while I'm there. However, I do think this is a good time to mention something that Klune said, which is that there are days, however, when the words just won't come, and that's okay. Instead of trying to force myself through it, I take a step back and work on something different, which is a great reminder for me, especially because I am someone who can get hyper-focused on one project at a time, and I forget that it's okay to spend some creative energy elsewhere. Now, you may be thinking, we sure have a lot of time left in the schedule. Well, according to another interview that Klune did, he said that he will spend the rest of the day working on other aspects of his job, like marketing, publicity, and an email inbox that never ever empties. So if I do come to a standstill at the library, I do think I will switch over to some client work, which is a shameless way to transition into me telling you about my book cover design services. It's my mission to make the publishing industry just a little bit more accessible, so I only charge a one-time fee. So whether you sell 100 books or 100,000, you only have to pay once, because I don't think you should have to sacrifice on a beautiful cover for affordability. And you can find my Contra link below if you want to hire me. Now, I'm not quite sure when I'll be getting back from the library, but I do know that tonight I am attending a girls' night, and then tomorrow I will be doing a write-in with my writers group. So in order to kind of take the pressure off of myself, I am not going to do a final reflection until sometime tomorrow. It is currently 7:56. So what do you say we actually sit down and do some writing?
Like you need it, and I'm halfway up, so in the middle, like you call my phone. Speak like a riddle and break me to pieces and skip town. God, I love when you let me down so bad. I
Okay, it's been about an hour and I have 504 new words in the document, so that's exciting. I'm slowly working through chapter 14. Is that what I'm on? 15. And I had a few beta readers read the first few chapters, and having their feedback was so helpful, and it definitely re-sparked this passion for the project, because I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but when I'm writing, sometimes I'm like way too close to the story and I'm not sure if what I'm trying to say is being understood. And they definitely reaffirmed some of the major changes that I made. I'm feeling good. And while I'm thinking about all of these structural changes that I've been making, I wanted to kind of point out something that Klune mentioned, which is that he is a heavy outliner, but what I didn't realize until I spoke with him was that he spends a long time in the outline and research phase. He said, I typically spend 3 to 6 months doing research for a book, so I know the direction I want it to go. Much of the time is spent doing that or thinking of ways to tell stories that are different than what I've done before. And basically he says the reasoning behind this is that he doesn't want to have to stop to look something up. I want to be ready to go when I start writing. Now, as someone who is a very loose outliner, and has sort of realized that they are more of an exploratory drafter, I cannot imagine spending that much time in the outlining phase before I actually even start writing. Oftentimes, my first outlines will look nothing like my first draft, will look nothing like my revised outline, and so on and so on. And at the start of this process, that kind of worried me. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to trust the decisions that future me was going to make in revision, or that current me was making in the drafting process. And I figured that my past self knew my story better, and she had all of the answers, and that's just not the case. And while I recognize that there are people out there like Klune who can spend that much time in the outlining phase, getting to know their characters and their plots and their magic systems, I also recognize that that's just not my process, and that's okay. If you've been here from the beginning, you probably know that my book was born because of a design challenge that I gave myself, and that I was so obsessed with this fictional book that I decided, hey, I might as well write it. And I gave myself so much creative freedom in the drafting process. And I learned that if I wasn't enjoying what I was writing, then I didn't need to write it. I could pivot and pivot until it started to feel like something that I enjoyed. And I feel like if I had spent as much time in the outline phase as Klune does, that I might have felt constricted to that outline. Or who knows, maybe those are problems that you solve in that phase that I feel that I can only solve when I'm actually drafting. Okay, it's 9:10 now. I think it's time to jump back into writing.
Embarrassing as hell. Don't have to tell the world the truth, but goddamn it, tell it to yourself. But you push me out, I keep you down. You scream, I shout, but I'm not gonna leave it, 'cause I'm halfway home, stuck in the middle, and you call my phone, speak like a riddle, and break me to pieces and skip town. God, I love when you let me down so bad. I shouldn't take it if they heard you laugh. That would explain it, and I'm so sick of loving you blindly, but you know where to find me, 'cause I'm halfway home, through the back to see, still love you. I don't know what I got for you, still miss you. It's okay, 'cause I'm halfway through the back to know, I still love you. I don't know what I got for you, I still miss you.
Okay, it's been another 40 or so minutes, and I got to a good stopping point. This is a scene that has sort of a new direction. I'm not entirely sure where we're going. I just know where we need to get to. It's kind of fun when my characters start doing things on their own, and I haven't had that happen for a while just because I, up until this point, have known basically where we need to go. I'm sitting at 1,040 words, so I wrote a little bit more than I did in that last sprint. And I wanted to mention, now that it's summer and my days are my own again, that a common thread I see is that most authors give you the advice to write every single day. And while I do agree with that, I think it's a lot easier said than done. And you shouldn't necessarily feel bad on the days that you don't write. That being said, I think it can be easy to fall into the trap of never having enough time. And believe me, I was, and still kind of am, one of those people who thought that I would never have enough time to pursue all of my passions until I started making time for them. And Klune told me that he had a job that he worked at for 60 hours a week and then would come home and write until very early in the morning and start all over again the next day. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that because honestly, that sounds horrible, and Klune even agreed, saying that if you want something bad enough, you tend to overlook healthy ways of doing things. But if there's something you do want to do, like writing a book or starting a business or joining AuthorTube, but you're struggling to start because you don't think you have enough time, I want to encourage you to take a moment and really analyze what you are spending your time on. Obviously, there are things that we have to do every single day that are outside of our control, like making food and going to work. But I promise you, there are so many pockets of space that you could be filling with doing the things that you love. And I've said it before, but the only thing that is doing the thing is actually doing it. Now, another common thing that I see in these videos is that authors will tend to write for only a few hours a day, which makes me think of my own process and how realistically there's only so much creative energy you can put into something consistently before you start to deplete the source, which makes me feel a lot better when I don't write all day on my days off, because if even successful writers aren't doing that, why am I holding myself to a different standard? I did also forget to mention that in another interview, Klune said that he'll listen to NPR in the background, and I don't typically listen to things while I write unless I'm like at a cafe and the chatter gets to be too much. Then I'll turn on like an instrumental playlist. But I used to love listening to NPR. I would have it on when I was driving to class or when I was in the stockroom of my retail job. So I am excited to turn it on and hear some familiar voices, and I feel like it might act kind of the way a body double video might. So we'll see if that is helpful at all. I will say it is 10 o'clock now and I will be going to the library in about an hour, so I'm not sure if we'll do another little update in between then, but you will definitely be coming along for the journey. So let's get back to writing.
To a pop-up city in India, to homes in Syria, we explore how urban life morphs and changes and what that history says about...
Almost forgot you. Come on, let's go. Hello again, it's future me here to tell you that I did not end up filming very much at the library, but I did hit 40K in the draft, which is super exciting because my original draft was at 68K, so that now means I'm officially 2/3 of the way through my original content, which is genuinely insane. I took a week-long break from the project while I was waiting for my printed draft to come in the mail, and then I immediately jumped into revisions right after, which was a poor choice on my part, and I've been using the analogy of polishing a turd for what I now consider to be draft 1.5, because I was essentially making line level revisions without having solved any of my larger problems. And then I went on a writer's retreat with my friends Ande and Brielle, and I actually spent the night before chatting with my brother about all of the plot holes and inconsistencies that I saw, and we actually workshopped a timeline, which ended up being the key to the problem. And then I just jumped right back into revisions, and I sat on the first third of this book for what felt like so long. Because yes, I knew the changes that I needed to make, but I started to question other things, like if my characters were even likable, or if their goals were even strong or understandable, and did we care about the characters enough to be willing to wait for the payoff? And so now I was faced with another set set of problems, which forced me to take another break. And this break only ended up being about a week and a half long too, but the space was exactly what I needed. And when I came back to my writing about a week ago, it felt a little different. It was starting to look a little more exciting and positive. And so now to just be at the midpoint of all of that effort feels like the light at a very long and confusing tunnel. And it's just given me this extra kick in the butt to keep going. And again, sharing those first few chapters with my writing group friends has been invaluable. It kind of feels like I was hearing that my trees had leaves, but I was just unable to see them until they put the glasses on for me. I brought out the big mic for this one because I think the audio is better, but also because I like feeling like I'm on a podcast. Okay, sue me. A huge shout out to Mr. TJ Klune for not only taking the time to speak with me, but to offer up real practical advice. It's so good to know that even people who need to be creative full time also need to step away sometimes to recover. And I will try really hard to remember that the next time that I'm hitting a wall. And I think there's something to be said about only writing for a few hours a day when you feel the most creative, and then taking some time away from those projects instead of pushing yourself through them. And before I go, I do want to reflect a little bit on something that I think Klune does exceptionally well, and that I see a lot in his works, which is how he always brings a sense of familiarity into anything that he writes, even though all of his books are very fantastical. For instance, the main character in The House in the Cerulean Sea is a case agent who spends most of his time sitting behind a desk. And if you remember at the beginning of this, I mentioned that Klune also worked a ton before becoming a writer full-time, and you can really feel that sense of dread for the 9 to 5 in that particular work that I think a lot of us creatives have. And I love this because I feel like my stories, without trying to sound like a poser, are also this reflection on the human condition. And sure, we might be time traveling or in space, but at their core, it's the characters that are really getting the message across that I'm trying to give, which is that we're all human. We love and we grieve, and sometimes we hurt people, but mostly we try to be good. And for Project Lament, I hope that we're having a fun time and laughing at the absurdity that is Callan's inner monologue. But I also hope that at the end of it, we realize he's kind of like us. He's flawed, but he also grows and learns, and he makes amends with others, yes, but also with himself. And he realizes that time won't fix what he's broken, but it can mend the relationships that he thought he lost. If you take anything away from this video, let it be this. There are going to be so many people who are going to try to hold you back, but you owe it to yourself to not be one of them. So start writing, start pursuing your passions, start being brave enough to reach out to the people that you admire and ask them questions and listen to their answers and feedback and advice in turn. And if you love something enough, you will make time for it. And AuthorTube is one of those things for me. I do this because it brings me joy, and if you had fun, I do hope you consider liking and subscribing. And if you feel so inclined, the link to my Ko-fi is in the description below, where you can make a small donation to fuel this big crazy dream of mine. And some final parting words from Klune before we go. Writing does require dedication and passion and tons of hard work, and yet there's nothing quite like this job. I will see you all in the next one. Happy writing.